Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today is the 16th of February, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So, I put out a tweet today basically saying, honestly, the more bad takes I read about crypto, the more convinced I become that people are mostly anti-crypto because they didn't get rich from it. Imagine missing out on the greatest wealth transfer in history because you thought it was a scam. It's got a sting. Now, there were a few people kind of like replying to this saying, it's not too late for them to get involved. They, of course, can, make investments. And if they make some good investments, they can make some money here. And then sometimes they can even make like 100x their money or something like that, right? Like a lot of those opportunities still exist, as I've discussed before. But I think what ends up happening is that if you miss out on something for so long and it keeps succeeding without you, you grow to resent that thing. You grow to hate that thing. And I've noticed this a lot with the anti-crypto people is that they, over the years, they've kind of like celebrated whenever the market's been bearish, whenever like the price came crashing down again and everything kind of like went very bearish for a while, and then it always roars back. Now imagine you've been a Bitcoin bear since I don't know, like the early 2010s. There are a few people like that out there since like 2012, 2013. You've seen the big 2014 crash, of course, of Bitcoin. You then saw the 2018 crash, and then Bitcoin rebounded back from that, and you saw the amazing 2017 run. Then you saw it crash again, and then you saw it run again, and every time it's just bounced back stronger. And for you, you've just been out of position at that point because you've been hating on it. You've been saying, no, this is all a scam. It's going to zero, blah, blah, blah. And you just really do grow to resent, I guess, crypto generally, especially when you see a lot of people making money off things like NFTs. I think this is where a lot of the NFT hate comes from as well. There's also a lot of kind of like divide right now in just general society. The middle class seems to be disappearing. So I kind of like get that all plays into it. But it's just kind of like this thing that happens where people kind of like, they know that they probably should get involved, and stop missing out on what's going on, but they've hated it for so long. It's kind of like a sunk cost fallacy as well, where they're kind of like, okay, well, I can't stop hating it now, right? I can't get involved now. It doesn't matter. Like I can't make the money. I can't get rich of it anymore. So I'm just going to keep hating it. And I see this play out so much from many different people, especially from the ones who have really, really bad takes on crypto. Now, not to say that bad takes on crypto are limited to these people. There's plenty of people in crypto that have really bad takes. I mean, I discussed Lynn Alden's bad take on proof of stake just yesterday, but I think generally this same pattern just keeps repeating. And to be fair, I've had this kind of like thing play out for myself, and I'm sure some of you have as well, where it's kind of like this weird thing. I'm sure there's a name for it, but I just don't know what it is, where you see something and you've just kind of like missed out on investing in it, and then you turn to like irrationally disliking it because of that. You kind of like miss out on buying into it, even though you were going to buy into it, and then like all your friends are making money on it, sort of thing. So, or not even just making money on it, but just like seeing some sort of success from it. I'm sure there's a name for this. I'm just not. I just don't know what it is right now, but. Yeah, I just kind of like keep seeing this pattern play out and repeat itself over and over again whenever I read these bad takes. So I felt like it was worth discussing today. And on a kind of like related note to this as well, I would say that the anti-crypto stuff comes from like not just the fact that they've missed out, but also from a lack of understanding. As I've discussed before, most people see the crypto industry as just what the headlines show them, the mainstream media headlines, which are obviously horrible, right? Like the headlines really only talk about two things mainly: the scams, rug pulls, and hacks, which I put into like one category, and the people making a lot of money from it, right? The people making their overnight riches. Now, if that's all you see about crypto, if you don't see anything about the tech, you don't see anything about the actual use cases, you don't see anyone getting actual value out of it. All you see is like opposite ends of the kind of like the extreme ends of the spectrum. Then of course you're going to have like a kind of limited and warped view. Now, where that kind of like view starts to, I guess for me, interfere with someone's kind of like a way to kind of rationally debate something is when they're opining on something. And we've seen this play out with the NFT ecosystem, where a lot of people will basically give like really strong opinions about NFTs, and they have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. A lot of them will say, oh, NFTs are killing the environment, when in reality, the Ethereum network is going to produce a block regardless of what's in it. So the environmental impact is pretty much going to be the same if there's 0 NFTs in a block, or if there's kind of like, if the whole blocks are NFTs. And really there's, you could say that kind of like as activity picks up on Ethereum, the ETH price goes up, and that leads to more miners coming online, which leads to a larger kind of like economic environmental footprint. But I mean, if ETH gets value from a lot of different things, not just NFTs, and you'd be hard pressed to map ETH's value directly back to NFTs. I think it's a kind of like holistic thing. So that's just kind of like one of the big misunderstandings there. But people will keep repeating that. They'll keep saying that. They don't even care that it's wrong because that's just what they're sticking with. They're kind of like built up this kind of image or mental model where they're like, I have to hate NFTs because they're bad for the environment, and anything that proves them wrong on that, they just don't want to hear about. So I'm sure you guys have seen this plenty of times, whether it's been in the NFT ecosystem or just crypto more generally. So I figured it was worth bringing up today. But I think I'm not going to ramble too much on about that. I think that as we kind of progress through the adoption cycle of crypto, a lot of this stuff's just going to be inconsequential. I mean, it already is inconsequential. These people don't really have any bearing on if crypto is going to succeed or not. As I've mentioned before on the Refuel, the fact that something has haters is, and that thing is still growing is actually generally a good thing for the thing, right? If it's still growing, if all the metrics are trending up and to the right, then the hate doesn't matter. The hate just acts as free marketing, which is exactly what we see play out with NFTs a lot of the time, but also with crypto more generally. So yeah, good thing to kind of like keep in mind and keep an eye on, that's for sure. All right, so today there was this research paper posted by Jiasun Lee here, where he basically described it in a tweet, basically saying, how effective is Ethereum 2.0 slashing mechanism? More than 75% of violations failed to be detected by whistleblowers and thus were not slashed. And he links to the paper here, which you can go check out. Now, this paper is so deeply flawed, I'm surprised that it was published. It's that bad, guys. And I'll explain to you why it's bad. It's bad because they used one third-party source for the basis of the entire paper. So in the paper, you'll be able to see, like if I open the PDF in my web browser here, it should load up. You can scroll to kind of like the bottom pages, and they have links to all of the validators and attestations and voting and all that sort of stuff that's going on here, and all the data that they use to base their research on. But all of that data came from one source, which was the Beacon Chain, I guess like CHA.io website, .in website, which provides a lot of different kind of like metrics around the Beacon Chain and statistics around the Beacon Chain. But it turns out there was a bug in how they were kind of reporting certain things, and that bug meant that this research paper was just completely wrong. So not only did the authors not actually use multiple third-party sources, they didn't even use an independent source, which they could have. They could have spun up their own Beacon node and done this and checked the data for themselves. But they decided to base an entire paper on this, publish the paper, and then spread, unintentionally probably, FUD about Ethereum 2.0 slashing mechanism. Now, if you go to this tweet and this thread, you'll be able to see basically all of the replies from a bunch of ETH2 client developers and researchers. Paul Horner is in here from the Lighthouse team. Raul from the Prylabs team. Lion here from ChainSafe, Lodestar. That's right. Buddha even replied from the Beacon Chain kind of like team here. There's a bunch of other people replying in here. I'm pretty sure. Where was it? I'm pretty sure someone else replied. Adrian Sutton here from the Consensus Protocol Consensus Protocol team put together a thread basically saying, why this was wrong, essentially. So you can read this thread for a deeper breakdown here. But another thing that I kind of like wanted to mention here was that this report was quote tweeted by a bunch of different people. And I believe that Kevin, one of the co-founders of Avalanche, actually retweeted this with a quote tweet saying, interesting paper or something like that. Now, obviously, he was trying to spread FUD about Ethereum. At least that's how I took it. And then Lynn Alden retweeted Kevin's tweet. So this is just classic. This is kind of like following on what I said yesterday. She's not interested in the truth about proof of stake, right? She's not interested in the truth about kind of like how it works. She's not interested in learning more about it. All she's interested in doing is pushing a narrative. And that's what a lot of people do. They'll latch onto anything, no matter if it's true or not, to push the narrative, which is the ultimate irony for Bitcoiners, because Bitcoiners always chant, verify, don't trust. Verify the information for yourself. Don't trust third-party sources. Well, here's a third-party source that didn't even do a research paper properly, and they're trusting that person to give them kind of like that context. So this is just like so insane to me that people are so quick and so, so badly want to FUD Ethereum that they'll just jump on anything. And you can see in some of the quote tweets, yeah, I mean, this is an Avalanche person right here. Obviously, I mean, that's funny that they follow me. I say it's an Avalanche person because the Avalanche people have this like red up pointing red triangle in their names, but they've kind of got like this, oh shit, like GIF from The Office here. And then you can kind of like scroll down, look at some of the other quote tweets. I mean, this one here saying that and posting this silly picture of Vitalik and kind of like paying out on Ethereum. The Bitcoin is saving account saying there is no second, but like this is just stupid, right? But this is what people latch onto, and this is what actually is super frustrating for me as an educator, is the fact that people will literally latch onto fake information, fake news, so to speak, to push their own agenda. And this doesn't just happen in crypto, it happens everywhere. But as an educator, it's especially frustrating. But I mean, I encourage you to go check out the thread from Adrian Sutton, which I'll link in the YouTube description. I do think reading the paper is a waste of time, considering the data is not correct. It doesn't really give you any information or anything because of that. They base their entire argument on this incorrect data. And basically what their argument was that this slasher, which is a kind of like, I guess, so how can I break this down really simply? Validators and I guess like nodes within the beacon chain don't slash by default. They have to kind of like be set up to slash, and you can opt into it. It requires a bit more hardware to do this, right? It's a bit more demanding on your hardware to do this, but you opt into it and then you can be a slasher, and it's kind of like an automated process. And that's how people are slashed in ETH2 for doing bad things. But this paper basically said that 75% of all bad things that happen weren't slashed, which is incorrect based on the data that was dug out by the ETH2 client developers and researchers, given that there was a bug on Beacon Chain that was showing the incorrect data here. So the Beacon Chain website, not the actual Beacon Chain. But yeah, definitely go read Adrian's tweet thread. I wouldn't bother reading the paper. I mean, you don't have to listen to me. You can read it if you want. But I just felt it was a waste of time given that the data was wrong here. So yeah, anyway, go check that out if you haven't yet. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. All right, so the Ultrasound Money account put out an interesting tweet today where they said MSTR, which is MicroStrategy, which is what's his name? How do I go blank on his name right when I need it? Michael Saylor. It's Michael Saylor's company that he buys Bitcoin through, right? So they're buying $200 million of BTC a month on average so far. But then you look at Ethereum, right, and you look at kind of like how much I guess like ETH is being bought a month by a single entity. And the biggest buyer of ETH right now is the Ethereum network itself, because the Ethereum network itself is technically buying $1 billion worth of ETH and burning it every month, right? Because, I mean, yes, it's not directly going out to the market and buying ETH, but what it is doing is the Ethereum network is selling block space for ETH. So to buy Ethereum's goods, the Ethereum network's good, which is block space, you have to pay it using ETH. So technically, the Ethereum network is kind of like doing a trade here between block space and ETH. And that's where you get that, obviously, most of that gets burned. 70 to 80% of it gets burned. And that's where you get what I titled today's newsletter as is the perpetual buyer. So that's Ethereum. Every 13 or so seconds, so every Ethereum block, the Ethereum network will purchase and burn a ton of ETH in fees, and that'll add up really, really quickly over time. I mean, at this point, we've burned over $5 billion worth of ETH, which is almost 2 million ETH since EIP 1559 went live in only August of last year. And that's going to continue in perpetuity. That is never stopping. Every single block, as long as the Ethereum network lives, it will burn ETH. Now, of course, like there is the smallest chance that for some reason in the future, the community comes together and says, okay, well, maybe we don't want ETH to be burned anymore. And they could change it, right? Like anything can be changed at the protocol level if the humans agree to do that. But there's no indication of that happening. I don't see any reason for that to happen, at least for the foreseeable future. So yeah, Ethereum becomes a perpetual buyer of ETH. Now this obviously has like giant ramifications for, I guess, ETH as an asset, Ethereum, the network, and just like demand supply dynamics for ETH in general. But what I really like about this is that no matter what, the Ethereum itself is the buyer of last resort for its own asset. Even if the demand for ETH from every other source was zero, the Ethereum network would still buy and burn ETH, because you don't just do ETH-related things on the Ethereum network. You do a ton of different things. You do NFT stuff, you do DAO stuff, you do kind of like Web3 stuff, right? You register an ENS name, all that kind of stuff. that all requires you to make a transaction, which requires you to burn ETH because you can't get around that. The Ethereum network needs to burn ETH as part of the base fee that is part of the EIP 1559 mechanism. So from that perspective, it's just actually like really, really cool to think about, right? That we have like a perpetual buy in the network itself, and we don't actually rely on outside buys to keep the demand up for ETH as an asset. As long as the Ethereum network has demand, ETH the asset has demand as well, which leads me to my final point, which is that I've always had the belief that ETH is a better asset than things like Bitcoin because of its utility. And its utility comes from the network. So that's why I've always had the thesis that as the Ethereum network grows, as its utility grows, as more and more people get like value out of Ethereum, and as ETH captures that value, because it obviously has to capture it. It can't just be the network getting all the usage and then the token not capturing any of it because it doesn't have any way to capture it. Whereas ETH obviously has a lot of ways, the burn, staking, collateral, all that sort of stuff. The thesis is that as the Ethereum network grows, the ETH price should grow with it, based on that fundamental demand, not based on any esoteric things, not based on memes or narratives, based on actual fundamental demand for the asset from the network itself, which is exactly what we're seeing play out. So this is what keeps me the most bullish on ETH over the long term. Really, is the two things that I think are the most bullish for ETH as an asset. Is the burn mechanism and kind of like the amount of ETH being burned and staking. Those two things. I mean, we could get rid of everything else, and those two things would still make ETH one of the best assets on the planet. But we do have everything else still, right? We have ETH is used as money, it's used as store of value, it's used as DeFi collateral. Like, there's so many use cases for ETH. It's just like, how can you be bearish on ETH, right? I've said this a million times, but yeah, just wanted to kind of cover that interesting tweet here. But that's it for that, because I got 15 minutes left and I got a bunch to get through. So Alex Vandersand has put together a nice thread with a bunch of graphics around the ENS system. So you can see here, Alex says, ENS is a complex system made up of multiple contracts. He has found 16 so far. This ensures we can freeze some parts and update others, limiting the scope of the damage a single error can do. The downside is that it's very hard for one person to get a grasp of the whole until now. And until now, meaning that he's put together a thread going over each part of the ENS system, breaking it down, showing pretty graphics for it, and everything like that. So whether you're a developer or otherwise, and you want to kind of like really get into the nitty gritty of how ENS works and how all the pieces come together, you should definitely check out this thread from Alex. It was very interesting, a very interesting read. He goes into detail about this. And if you're wondering who Alex Vandersand is, he is an ETH OG. He's been around since basically day one. And he's also the co-founder of ENS. So he would know a thing or two about the system here. So definitely go check this thread out from him, because he knows what he's talking about, and there's a lot of really great information that can be had from this thread. All right, so another thread from Polynya today discussing dYdX's kind of like fee revenue and how much fees they are paying, and just layer 2s in general. So Polynya starts the tweet by saying, dYdX did 1.15 million transactions, paying $45,000 in gas fees. That's 0.04 cents per transaction. dYdX transactions are highly complex, estimated at 300,000 to 400,000 gas. Overall, dYdX did 4 times Ethereum mainnet in terms of transactions, but this is just the beginning. Fees will keep dropping as activity increases. And then Polynya does one of their classic threads, which you should give a read to below. Now, what I wanted to kind of like discuss here is the fact that I showed you the website the other day that David Mihal created, where he's basically tracking how much layer 2s are paying to L1 for security. The efficiency here is insane, right? That truly, I mean, $45,000 in gas fees to settle 1.15 million transactions, doing 4 times the amount of Ethereum mainnet in just one app-specific roll-up is insanity, right? I mean, it's just crazy. Like, you can even see in the Polynya's next tweet, he says, they say, I estimate that dYdX earned $3 million in trading fees at least in the last 24 hours, and only 1.5% of that was needed to pay Ethereum for security and settlement. When your running costs are this low, right, when you can literally pay 1 to 2% as settlement fee and as kind of like posting your data and things like that to layer 1 Ethereum, then it is an absolute no-brainer to just spin a roll-up up. Because doing this as a layer 1, you would need to pay out block subsidy. block rewards to validators in order to secure the network and to come to consensus on things and to be your settlement layer for your kind of like app. That's why I've always been bearish on sovereign app-specific chains that don't share security and stuff like that. I've just been super bearish on that because it's just economically wasteful. It's just, you're bleeding so much value. Like, imagine if dYdX was its own layer 1 instead of its own rollup, and it still had its dYdX token. Now, let's say that the token actually had to pay out to the layer 1 validators, because let's imagine it was a proof of stake network, in order to secure the network. Let's say inflation was 5%. That's 5% of whatever the dYdX market cap is, being inflated a year just to pay the validators. And that's not including the liquidity mining that dYdX is doing, the investor tokens, all this sort of stuff coming out. But this is going to, to parties that need to be paid in order to secure the network. Now, as a layer 2, and also they have to worry about consensus and kind of like keeping a layer 1 network up and all that sort of stuff, which is not something that app developers should have to worry about. The app developers should be able to just worry about their app and making it the best possible thing that they can make it, and not have to worry about the infrastructure behind it, right? Or at least kind of like the layer 1 infrastructure. Now with the layer 2, the costs come down considerably. They only need to pay Ethereum for like, kind of like posting their batches there and posting their call data and things like that, which is considerably cheaper, and they obviously pass those costs on to the users, because on dYdX it's free to trade because they make it in trading fees instead of charging you gas fees to trade on there. So I recommend giving this thread from Polynya a read, but it just again speaks to the fact that the modular blockchain thesis and the modular blockchain design is vastly superior to the monolithic design in pretty much every way possible. But I think cost is one of the biggest kind of like reasons why it's superior. And that's what makes me most bullish on, I guess, like the modular design in general. All right, so I think I spoke about this last week with the Coinbase Wallet extension supporting Polygon PoS DEX swaps here, which you can see a little GIF of. But I wanted to highlight that I guess like Coinbase, I guess like highlighting this and actually advertising it through their channels, I feel is like really bullish, right? I really like this because of the fact that I know Coinbase has been dragging their feet on Ethereum scalability integrations and layer 2 integrations, but at least once they do it, they're promoting it. At least once they do it, they're actually telling people about it instead of just like doing it and kind of like leaving people to discover it themselves. So I really like that. I wish these exchanges will do more marketing around this. I know it's not in some of the some of the exchanges' best interest to do this, and I know that people are just going to find their way to the layer 2s anyway. But I mean, could you imagine like a Coinbase doing a concerted effort around getting people to go onto layer 2s instead of Ethereum layer 1? Imagine Coinbase doing a thing where they're like, hey, would you like to transfer to Ethereum layer 1 or one of these layer 2s, and explaining the difference to users about them, saying you can do what you can do on Ethereum, but it costs you considerably less, and it's just, it shares the security of Ethereum. I think that would go a long way to educating people as well. And it's not just Coinbase that can do this, it's pretty much any on-off ramp to layer 2s that can do this. And I hope to see more of it going forward, that's for sure. All right, speaking of layer 2s, Optimism put out a post today breaking down how they've been able to lower gas fees on the Optimism network over the last few months. Now, obviously, I've covered these, I guess, like 30% reductions in gas fees whenever they've happened. And if you want a more technical breakdown, you should definitely go check out this blog post from Optimism. I'm not going to summarize it for you. I'm not going to read it out for you. Definitely go check it out. It'll be linked in the YouTube description. But I want to see more of this. I love this sort of stuff, like especially the more technical stuff, because it's all well and good for them to announce these things and end users getting benefits out of it, which is obviously the main point. But like me, as someone who wants to dive deeper, I always kind of like wonder, like, how do they actually achieve this? Like, what goes on under the hood? And yes, there's probably like 1% of the people who actually use Ethereum and use Optimism that will read this blog post, but I don't think that matters. I think that's the 1% of people who are actually interested in it and actually interested in understanding it and could actually probably help. Like a lot of developers are going to read this and be like, oh, that's how they did it. That's really cool. I could integrate that with my own kind of like contract or my own code sort of thing. So I think it's very important to kind of, I guess, like have these blog posts available for people, especially the more technical people, just so they can learn from the experts, so to speak. All right, a new protocol launched on Ethereum mainnet today called 0x Splits. So 0x Splits is the protocol for trustless, composable, gas-efficient splits. It's non-upgradable, completely free to use, and entirely on-chain. And today it's live on Ethereum. Now, you'll have seen or heard me talk about splits as a concept before. Got to do with the Mirror platform. I think I spoke about this a few months ago. But basically, what a split allows you to do, and this actually happened with the NFTs as well that we did for the Daily Gwei. Basically, there was a split contract put in place on Mirror where we said, okay, X amount is going to Kidder for his work, X amount is going to me, and then those funds I took from kind of like myself and I put them into the vesting contract for the ETH2 core devs, right? But with 0x splits, we can kind of like expand on that and kind of like make it composable and go even further with it, where you can do splits for anything, really. I mean, I suggest reading their blog post to kind of like get a breakdown of this and kind of like get a breakdown of why this is really great infrastructure. But you can see here like a visualization of it, right? There's a split. This split kind of like pays out to Alice and Bob, but then it also pays out to another split, which you can pay out to more people. So there's kind of like, infinite loops you can do here with splits. You can split different things like not just kind of like ERC20 tokens, but you could do like NFT stuff. You could do any kind of like a value, whether that's like ETH, ERC20 tokens, NFTs, or anything like that. So I'm really excited about this protocol. I think it's very interesting. I think it definitely is a core primitive and core infrastructure. It may seem like something that's kind of like simple, but like that's the point, right? It's supposed to be simple, a simple splits protocol for anyone to be able to use. That's on Ethereum, very very easy to use, and people can get a lot of value out of. It's sort of like the Gnosis Safe multi-sig. It's a very kind of like simple thing, right? It's a multi-sig wallet, but it has a lot of features on it. It has a lot of different things you can do with it. A lot of people use it. There's over $100 billion worth of value in there because it just provides a simple, effective service. And that's all you need sometimes. You don't need all these fancy bells and whistles everywhere. Just like a multi-sig is fine. I know Gnosis Safe integrates with a bunch of different things, but that came later. I think the multi-sig on its own is just an amazing product in of itself. It doesn't even need all the other features. But I think that's what 0x Splits is going to do. They're going to be a similar thing where it's just core infrastructure that everyone can use, and then it's very easy to use as well. So James Weil here from FireEye DAO announced a new thing called the Wildfire DAO. So what the Wildfire DAO is that it connects Ethereum community members to tackle token design, governance, and coordination within specific sectors of Web3. So if you're interested in getting involved in any of that sort of stuff, Wildfire DAO may be for you. Now, James has been a long-time kind of like DAO person. He is part of a group that consists of people like Cooper Turley here, Lucas from Bankless, Callum here from FireEye as well, that have been doing a lot of different governance-related things. They've helped ENS out before, they've helped Gitcoin out, they've helped a bunch of other projects out as well, and they've just been, fully immersed within the DAO ecosystem for a very long time. So I'm bullish on these guys, I'm bullish on this team, I'm bullish on what Wildfire wants to do. Like you can see here, James saying they're going to focus on 4 key sectors, which is DeFi, public goods, the creator economy, and infrastructure, all with tokenized incentives to contribute. So if you're looking for something to do, maybe even part-time or casually within the crypto ecosystem, this is probably for you, to be honest. I mean, this is going to cover a wide range of different use cases. It's going to cover not only Web3 stuff, but DeFi stuff and NFTs and just other DAOs. There's so much going on here. I actually think this is probably, as a newer person, probably the best way to learn about the ecosystem in general, especially the Ethereum ecosystem. So, I mean, you can read about it here, and you can kind of like join the Discord channel as well to get more involved. But I think, if I was to recommend anything today for a new person to get involved with the Ethereum ecosystem, this would probably be it at this point. Now that I have like a little bit of a think about it, because there's a million different rabbit holes you can fall down, but you really want to start at like the high level. You want to start with kind of like like-minded people and people that have kind of been involved with this sort of stuff for a while. And you want to have them guide you into the right places instead of falling down the BitBoy rabbit hole. You never want to go down that rabbit hole. You definitely want to go down this one. So definitely check it out. Join the Discord channel, and I'm sure someone will be able to help you in there if you want to get onboarded. All right, so Nifty Island is very close to releasing their closed alpha, and they've been teasing a lot of things lately, such as kind of like the building system, the characters, how the NFTs are going to be able to integrate and transform. I'm super, super excited for Nifty Island. Like, I love that, I've still got my Palm, I've still got my pistols. I want to be able to kind of like put them on my island and build everything and stuff like that. And, you can see this teaser video here of them kind of like putting together a house and building things. One of the reasons why I'm so excited about this this is because I used to be really big into builder games, especially Minecraft back in the day. This is a long time ago. Like I was 18. I was actually playing Minecraft instead of studying for my year 12 exams, but which were the most important exams. In hindsight, not really, but at the time they were the most important exams. But I love building things. Like I love building things from nothing, building it up. And I think for Minecraft, for me, it was that it didn't really have permanence. Like there were online stuff you could do and things like that, but it all kind of felt like, okay, well, and this is temporary. This isn't going to last, for many, many years. It's not going to last forever. Whereas with an NFT-based game or something like Nifty Island, what they're trying to do with the metaverse is they're actually trying to make things last for a very long time. They're trying to build permanence. And that's what I've always wanted in a game, is permanence. What's always turned me off a lot of these online games is that it feels like you play them for a little while and then they just kind of like get stale and get old and kind of like the company gives up on them. I mean, World of Warcraft is an example of one that lasted a very long time, but even that's kind of like come to its end. I mean, they had to relaunch the game from zero because so many people wanted to play classic World of Warcraft again rather than the modern version, which is called retail. And I actually think they're at the point now where they're probably going to bring out like World of Warcraft 2 or something, because retail has gotten so stale. The classic, which is the reboot that they did, is progressing, but even that, like, it just gets to a point where things get stale and there's really no permanence there because it's a centralized company. You can't take your assets with you. You can't put them in other games. It's just like all on one centralized server. So I think from that perspective, that's why one of the main reasons I'm excited about Nifty Island. So I'm curious to see how this closed alpha goes. And hopefully I can be involved with this. I mean, I've got a Palm. I'm going to assume I'm going to get an invite to this and going to be able to enter into the closed alpha. And if I am, I'll play around with it and let you guys know what I think about it in the Discord channel. So definitely join that if you haven't yet to get my thoughts there. But I think that's going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.